Most people know that November is the time of year, depending on the year, when they go to the polls to cast their vote for one office or another. But did you know that there's a vote that occurs after the vote? Now, this is not a vote that the average person gets to participate in. This is the vote that happens at the state legislature and is an internal vote. But it's a very important vote nonetheless, and it usually happens a day or two after the election, sometimes before you even know the results of some of the close races out there. So what am I talking about? Well, after you go and cast your vote, ultimately we assemble legislators to the state capitol to enact laws. But the first thing they do before they get to enact those laws is they gather together to choose their leadership. They do this as a caucus. Now, what is a caucus? A caucus is essentially a political party serving in one of the two chambers in the Arizona State Legislature. So, for instance, in the Arizona State Senate, there is a Republican caucus and a Democratic caucus. The caucus is when all the Republicans or all the Democrats gather together to talk about some issue. And the same thing holds true for the Arizona House of Representatives. Republican caucus, Democratic caucus. If there were a third party that had been in office, they would also have their own caucus. But at the moment, there are only two caucuses in each chamber for a total of 4 caucuses. That's what the word caucus means. Well, each caucus in each chamber gets together in some secret, undisclosed place in closed doors, and they elect their leadership. That is, who are going to serve important roles within their caucus in the coming legislative session. By far, the most important role is that of the presiding officer. And this is a luxury that only the majority party gets to choose. The presiding officer of the Arizona State Senate is the state president. So when we talk about the president within the state of Arizona, we are not talking about an executive position. We are actually talking about a legislative position, namely the person in charge of the Arizona State Senate. On the House side, the presiding officer is called the Speaker of the House. Now, while technically the presiding officer is chosen by the entire chamber, the majority party in either chamber always agrees that whoever among themselves is elected to the position, they will all rally behind and elevate to the presiding officer's spot. So what does an election like this look like? Well, it involves a lot of jostling, a lot of negotiating with your peers, trying to get your peers to cast their secret ballot for you for the specific office. Presiding officer, president or speaker, is obviously the most powerful and the most significant. The presiding officer of a chamber is the one who determines which committees will exist, who will chair those committees, which bills will be assigned to those committees, who will serve on those committees. They determine what the calendar is going to look like, so when the committees will meet, what the day-to-day will look like. They manage the internal budget of that chamber. They're in charge of the hiring and firing of staff. And that's just part of their job description. So suffice it to say, the presiding officer spot is extremely important and is the most coveted and the most sought after among the caucuses. But there are other leadership positions as well. After the presiding officer, in the case of the majority party, the majority also elects the majority leader. They also elect the majority whip. In fact, those 3 spots, the presiding officer of the chamber, the majority leader, and the majority whip, round out the 3 elected members of the majority party leadership team. On the minority party side, they also choose their leadership. Their leadership positions are minority leader, assistant minority leader, and minority whip. And the difference between what each position does and what each title means is not that important, and in fact varies from session to session. But the hierarchy is clear. Presiding officer at the top and the other leadership positions below. In addition to serving as Senate President or Speaker of the House, that individual gets to appoint the Speaker pro tem of the House or the President pro tem of the Senate, which makes a 4th leadership position on the majority leader side. So what does all this mean? Well, most people, most average folks, don't really pay attention too much to the internal workings of the legislature in this sort of election. But it is important to know that there are things that happen after the November election that we often don't know about.